He's Michael Lombardi of VSiN. You also catch him on the GM Shuffle, and of course, Coach with Bill Belichick as well. Michael, always good having you on the show. How you doing today, my friend?
I am good. Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you, Travis. George?
Always good having you on. Now, as last week we wanted to talk about the Patriots win, but we got sidetracked by some stuff happening beyond the coaching in the front office. This week, coming off a loss 28-22 to the Rams, where they were in it at the end, but coaching showed its face around, and it was Sean McVay against a first-year head coach. We keep looking for consistency with this team, but we're not getting it, Michael. What stood out to you this past Sunday about the lack of consistency and especially the lack of coaching we saw on the field?
Well, I just felt like it was going to be a bad matchup for the Patriots because defensively, that was going to be a challenge. This Ram team, the week before had played poorly against Miami, but, their offensive line was intact. They had Puka Nacua back. They had Cooper Kupp. So I think, to me, this was going to be a tough challenge. And the front of the Rams, their defensive front, was going to be hard for the Patriots to block. They actually blocked them better than I thought they would. But, when your team's inconsistent, it looks like the coaching is inconsistent. They can't seem to correct some of the mistakes that they make. Yeah, I thought the zero blitz on second down call for the touchdown early to Cooper Kupp. When you have a rookie quarterback, the last thing you want to do is you make a bad call there. And I'm sure Coach Covington would like to have it back. You make a bad call there, now you're down, and you have your quarterback has to throw it all the time. You want to keep the game tight to the last 6 minutes of the game. Make them drive it down the field, but they gave up too many big explosive plays, and Shaw and Matthew Stafford was sensational. So it's part of being a bad team. I mean, that's just what it is. You're just not good enough. You can't convert third downs at a high enough level. You can't keep the ball away from the opponent.
Sort of zooming in on Drake Maye here, Michael. I mean, we heard Kurt Warner earlier in the show. He's high on the kid. He likes what he sees from him so far. Now that we've had a handful of starts here, where are you at with him, Michael, current day? I mean, the development of Drake Maye, what are you seeing when you watch him specifically?
Well, you still see some mistakes. I think you see some, he holds the ball too long. I don't know really who he was throwing the ball to on the interception. I mean, I have no idea where that was going. I know they said there was some miscommunication. I don't even understand the route concept that they were trying to run, especially that he threw the ball behind the receiver. So, look, I think it's all part of the day's work of a young quarterback who didn't have a lot of starts in college. And I think they're learning about him and what he's good at running. And I think he's learning about how to play professional football. And I think he's got a great upside to him. He's obviously got to learn how to get more consistent. He's got to be able to play better under pressure. I mean, look, the Tennessee game, he threw an interception on the last drive of the game. They just didn't catch it. In this game, he throws an interception on the last drive of the game. They caught it. He's got to stop making those mistakes and critical plays during the game. But that's called growing up. That's part of what you're going to have to go through when you play a young quarterback and the rest of the team isn't good around them. And I think the biggest issue with the Patriots is their inability to really get control of the game with their offensive line.
Yeah, I think that's a big part. Michael, we've spoken about earlier the week on this show. There's one offensive lineman I'd bring back as a starter. That'd be Mike Onwenu. We'll see David Andrews down the road. But I'd like you point out what we've seen on the field from him. What about off the field? Because his leadership at the podium has been tremendous. We've seen him, the mic'd up clips, the guy on the sideline cheering on this defense. What about the off the field stuff that you've looked for in franchise quarterbacks when you're an NFL exec that stands out to you about Drake Maye?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think he's got all those things. I think the question you got to ask yourself is the player development going to be there? How good's the coaching? Where can you take the player? The player wants to go somewhere. Where can you take them to? We've seen that. Look, I mean, Josh McDaniels made Mac Jones look a lot better than Mac Jones has looked since he left him. So coaching really matters to get to another level that you're going to have to get to. And I think that's going to be the fundamental question the Patriots have to address in the offseason. Do they have the right offense? Do they have the right offensive coordinator? Do they have the right system in place, right? I think that's all going to come down to it. Are they building the right kind of team? Because the longer the season goes, it becomes harder, and this is going to eventually become Mayo's program. He can't. Yeah. It's no longer Belichick's program. It's going to be his program, and the further you get into that program, how good is it?
Yeah, sort of following up there because the Diana Rossini report was that this coaching staff is safe for 2025. I wonder how that landed for you because I read it and I thought, already? I mean, all these games left? What if the bottom falls out of this thing the rest of the season? Why are they safe already? How did that land with you?
Well, I never thought they were going to be in trouble because they're going to blame everything on Bill.
Right.
And Mr. Kraft saw Mayo 7 years ago and identified him as a great coach, so he's not going to give up on it after a year. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think the win-loss record really matters. I think this was predetermined. I think it was preset that he was going to come back, and so be it. He comes back, and we'll see. Now, that doesn't mean the coaching staff comes back. That just means Mayo comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that report stuck out to me too. I agree with you, Michael. Like, as the start was and how rough it was, the best defense I could give Gerard Mayo was that Robert Kraft handpicked him. He attached him to the hip with, like you said, 7 years ago, 5, whatever it was, saying he'd be the next head coach of the Patriots, not just a future head coach, along with everything else. But when I see that report, the offense has developed. We've seen more pre-snap motions. We've seen Drake grow and making anticipatory throws, which is showing the development of him. But the defense was the reason that they lost this past Sunday. When we see those reports, stuff can change. It's week 11. When we get to week 18, we'll see how it goes. But does that jump out at you too? If you watch this defense and you go, now is when you put out that report? Or do you think it's something where Diana Rossini puts this out and it combats reports of last week of them making phone calls around the league?
Well, I think that you knew there was going to be an answer to the phone call report, right? You knew that. Okay, so I think that's part of Kraft PR 101. So you knew that was going to come out. You had to expect that. Look, I think to me the bigger question that really needs to be addressed is if Mayo is such a good defensive coordinator, and that's what his specialty is, why is the defense so inconsistent? I think that's the fundamental question that needs to be asked is why aren't they better on defense? They've got really good players. They signed all those guys.
Yeah.
But to me, they got out coached on Sunday defensively. I think to me, the only reason the game stayed within 6 points was because the Rams were trying to run out the clock, not trying to keep scoring. I think the Rams would have put 30 on them if they had the opportunity.
As someone who's been an architect of a franchise, of a roster, you look at the holes with this Patriots team. Wide receiver, you talked about the offensive line. I think they just lack playmakers, period. We could call it that. Sort of take us behind the curtain of how they should build this. So, okay, we all like Drake Maye, great. Is it offensive line? And also, how do you sort of allocate draft, free agency? How would you almost attack this from the ground up and build around Drake Maye?
Well, it's hard to find offensive linemen in free agency, right? They're not out there.
Right.
They cost too much money. They're hard to get to. But I would put a priority on offensive and defensive linemen. I mean, to me, that's the game, and they're in position to do it. They have a ton of cap room. They have a ton of draft picks. To me, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow the Detroit Lions model. They picked Penny Sewell. The Bengals picked Jamar Chase. Right. Great player. They can score a lot of points, but they can't control the game. Their offensive line is terrible. So I would put all my resources not only in drafting offensive linemen, but player development. I mean, one of the reasons we were so good in New England wasn't because we had this keen eye for offensive line talent. It was because we had a great offensive line coach in Dante Scarnecchia who was able to develop the Shaq Masons, who was able to develop some of these young players, Sebastian Vollmer, and Nate Solder, and got them to play at a very high level. Ryan Wendell, that they find, David Andrews. You get these guys and play good, and that goes a long way. And I think to me, there's two kind of programs you have to build as a general manager. You got to draft players, but you also have to have a player development program, which a lot of teams don't have. Which I don't see the Patriots really doing a great. I mean, they're developing the quarterback, but I think it's his talent we're seeing develop. We're not necessarily seeing the development of the quarterback. I think they're two different things.
Right.
Yeah, the one position coach I'll give them that we know can develop is Mike Pellegrino, the cornerbacks coach, who's a carryover from Bill's staff, has been with the Patriots since 2015. You bring up how expensive it can be to land an offensive tackle, and this free agency class is weak. But when we look at all the cap room they've had, and this again goes back to last week's conversation, Michael, where when I read the reports, I'm hearing a meddling owner. Will the front office for the Patriots, will the Patriots have a full reign, you think, to go with into free agency to get a receiver or a tackle, or is that just too good to be true because of how hands-on the Crafts want to be?
They're going to look. They own the team. They removed the greatest coach of all time so they could coach this, so they could be involved in their team. I mean, so I think to me they're going to be involved. Now that's not saying they're going to go down there and pick the 4-string left tackle. I'm not saying that, but when you start talking about putting money into things, they're going to want to know who's making the decision, who they like. They're going to check and double check. They're not going to take someone's word for it and go for it. I mean, he's even admitted that he felt like that he felt like he didn't have enough checks and balances on Belichick. He won 6 Super Bowls with Belichick. How many more checks and balances do you need? Just look at the trophy case. But, I don't think that's in his personality. I think he wants to be involved, and he has every right to be involved. He owns the team.
Michael, this offseason, from where the Patriots sit, are they pitching themselves as, hey, listen, we have this young stud rookie quarterback. We have tons of cap space. Come here, be a part of Patriots Dynasty 2.0. Or is it really, for your experience, is it literally these players are just looking for money? Show me the money. When you kind of go out into free agency, are the Patriots pitching that we have this great thing working, come be a part of it? Or is it literally just we can give you the most money? How are they attractive to players?
It's money. I mean,
money.
There's the first phase of free agency is all about money.
Right.
When that phase gets worn out, where Bill made a really good living was when that phase got worn out, you were able to get players that wanted to be a part of winning that weren't getting a contract somewhere else.
Okay.
And so you could get some bargain basements, but that's only in the second phase. The first phase is all about money. You think Calvin Ridley really cares about whether he went to New England or he went to Tennessee? He went there with tax-free state. He didn't want to pay Massachusetts state tax, and if you're not going to compensate him above that, then he's not going to go to your place. So It's really, we learned that 1994 started free agency, and we were taking players out to dinner and limos and doing all that. Now it's just about how much you're going to pay me. It's what's your tax rate in their state? How much are you going to pay me? What am I getting back? And how are we spreading the contract? Oh, I'll sign with you. It's no longer the recruiting element. It's just all about money.
Especially in a state that has a millionaire's tax in effect as well. So the extra tax on every dollar you make over $1 million as well. Michael, you took us back to 94 real quick. You have a good recruitment story in free agency that you maybe thought it'd be shaky, and then you landed the guy.
Well, I mean, look, we spent a lot of time on Reggie White in 94, couldn't get him. Tried to like crazy. We spent a lot of time on Andre Rison. We got him, which really hurt our team because we went for a receiver. We should have signed Bryce Pop. There's a lot of those stories. I think my favorite one is the best thing I ever did. We signed Keenan McCardle, and basically for nothing. And he ended up playing how many years in the National Football League? And we took him off of a recommendation of a friend of mine down in Houston, and he had the best hands of anybody. But it's always back. You're living and learning. Part of the hard part of the cap in 93, 94 was you had your team already built. So you did, we had a team. We had Mike Johnson playing inside linebacker. He's one of our better players, so he's one of our highest paid players. But you can't have an inside linebacker as your highest paid player. You need to put the money somewhere else, and that became a little bit of a problem too.
Well, damn it, Michael. All this sounds fun to me. I mean, is the fun gone out of the front office? Do you think we'll ever see those days that you lived through, or is it all transactional now?
No, well, it's all, you got some guy in his underwear in his basement in Des Moines telling you based on these analytics, this is who we should sign. So it takes all the fun out of it,
Right.
I'm not saying you shouldn't have some form of analytics, but somebody who doesn't understand what football is all about, it's hard to have analytics.
Yeah, completely hear that one out. Now, Michael, I want to look ahead real quick. Thanksgiving Day, it's a good spread of games. It's mainly the teams playing. The Lions and the Packers, the rest of the teams aren't that good. But for someone that's dedicated their life to football, what is a Thanksgiving Day like for you? What's a tradition you can have? Because you're either preparing for a game, you're on the field for a game, or I know now what you do with VEASAN, you're working anyway.
I mean, I love Thanksgiving. It's my favorite holiday. You get an opportunity to watch 3 games into the night. You have family, friends, the TV set. When I was a kid growing up, I can still remember Clint Longley throwing Roger Staubach got hurt. I was a huge Washington Redskin fan growing up. And, it was Thanksgiving at my aunt's house. I think I was 10 or 11 years old, and Roger Staubach got hurt, and I was really kind of happy because I felt now the Redskins could beat the Cowboys. And then Clint Longley comes off the bench and throws a touchdown pass to Drew Pearson. And, I went to school on Monday in tears. So it's fun. It's the memories that you have playing football in the playground, with your family, and whether it's the Kennedys on out there at the Cape, or whether it's in your own backyard, football, family, and friends is the best.
Hey, Michael, last one for me. It's a little bit outside of the box, which won't surprise you. But, the trending topic now is all the rumors of Deion Sanders to the NFL as a head coach, maybe the Cowboys, maybe whoever. When you kind of watch what he's doing in Colorado, I'm sure you know him personally, like you know everybody. But do you think Deion as a head coach would translate to the NFL from what you see?
I think Deion's already said it. We wrote an article today on the Daily Coach about Deion, and he said, I got my kickstand down. And what he meant was, It didn't mean he doesn't want to be a head NFL coach. It just means he's really happy where he is at the moment. And Deion's made the statement that he thinks he would have a hard time coaching guys who make more money than him. And I think that's probably true. I think there's some parts of the college game that has now become a pro game. And there's some coaches. Nick Saban was like this. Nick Saban wanted the old way of recruiting. He liked to talk about the drapes and the table settings in some kid's home. You know, now that he had 50 guys lined up at his door who wanted raises after the season last year, he didn't like that. Mm-hmm. You know, and so it's a little bit for everybody else. I think Deion likes this setup where he has it. Whereas if he comes to pro football, you can't coach hard. You have to be gentle and kinder because we're going to go to Dairy Queen after the game. You have to be nice, you know. So I think to me that's where it gets into a little bit of an issue.
He's Michael Lombardi. Catch him on VSiN, coach, the GM Shuffle as well. Michael, we'll have a break from you. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. We'll see you the week after. Always appreciate the insight, my friend. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.